Welcome to Learn Shorthand Dictation with Vikasa transcription number 59 and 60 at the rate 80 word per minute. Start. Under the second 5-year plan, the government want to start junior technical institutes. But so far, the education department is not in a position to know what type of junior technical institutes are going to be established in the country. Every time we ask the education department to furnish us with the details of their schemes, the reply we get from the education ministry is that some officer of the department has been sent abroad to study this question, and only when he returns from abroad will they be able to finalize the thing. An officer of the education department has been sent to study these institutions in France. I think he must be spent 4 or 5 months in France, but the reply that the education ministry has given is that he could not study the entire scheme and he wants some other officer to be deputed to study. As I said before, under the second 5-year plan, we are to start junior technical institutes, but so far the education department is not in a position to give even the correct information to those private agencies which are there ready to start these schools. Therefore, I request the education department not to sleep over things but to take very active steps in collecting the necessary information and in helping the private agencies who want to start these institutes in this country. I know my people are suffering because they have been given a very defective type of education. Today, we have to depend upon the reservations whenever any vacancy occurs in a department. That vacancy, even if it is reserved, it is not filled by a scheduled caste man. Naturally, this type of education will not help a candidate to choose any other profession except to depend upon government establishments. Therefore, it is necessary at least to see that the scheduled caste, the scheduled tribes, and the tribal people do not depend upon the reserved services. They must be given technical education. For that, the education department will have to spend enormous money. I do not want government to simple waste money in propaganda against untouchability. This is a real step which would definitely improve the conditions and make the scheduled caste to be independent, that is without being dependent upon government services. Therefore, I would like the Home Ministry to give special directives to all the state governments. I know in some of the states they have started special schools when they felt the need, because in many of the other institutions the scheduled castes were not allowed in those days. At that time, there were many states which had started special schools to cater to the needs of the scheduled castes. Now, when the government is not able to give the reserved vacancies to them, it is very necessary that these technical schools should be started so that the scheduled castes can be made independent and can prosper in this country. I join my friend in expressing satisfaction at the fact that the national income has recorded an increase of 18%, perhaps 7% more than the estimated increase. But I don't find evidence of this in any villages. Appreciable increase in the standard of living in the villages. I should like to know from the finance minister if this increase in national income is reflected in the general living of the people. Have they tried to find it out either by any sample survey or by any other method? We should know whether the benefit has reached the common man. As far as I am concerned, my own experience is that unemployment in the rural areas continues to be as high as it was before if it has not recorded any increase. One way by which we can gauge this is by the number of persons crowding around public servants or public men for some sort of recommendations to secure jobs. In urban areas, the extent of unemployment is judged by the registrations in the employment exchanges. I don't suppose there is any such device for the rural areas, and I think our experience can be depended upon to some extent for finding out the extent of unemployment. This leads me to feel that even though there is an increase in national wealth, the benefit is not going to the common man. Therefore, I feel that we should bring about a very drastic change in the property relations. If we are really keen on realizing the socialist pattern of society, the sooner we change the property relation, the better. I believe the proportion in which the accumulated wealth of the nation is held by certain classes determines the pattern of production to a considerable extent. The pattern of production determines the pattern of distribution. We cannot therefore secure distributive justice unless and until there is a change in property relations. We have therefore abolished the sensitivity attached to the properties, and we have made compensation payable to those who are expropriated non-justifiable. Stop. Transcription number 60. During the last general elections, the government found on careful consideration that it would not have been possible to provide such facilities without rousing criticism of unfairness and partiality from one group or the other. However, after the elections, the government have given careful thought to the matter. Practices prevailing in other democratic countries have also been studied and compared. It is well to remember that examples of other countries that can be cited in this behalf are not uniform and are based on conditions which differ radically in many important respects from country to country. The practical aspect of the question has also great importance. The area of the country, the form of government, federal or unitary, and the number of parties involved, all the factors which have been kept in mind by various countries in taking in decision. In USA, where broadcasting is run by private enterprise, though certain principles of equal opportunity have been laid down by the Federal Communications Commission in practice, it is a rare occurrence because time has to be purchased and a great deal of bickering and dissatisfaction always exists. In Great Britain, only since war opportunities have been provided for a few election broadcasts, the allotment of time being subject to the strength of the parties and other practical considerations. In countries like Switzerland, no time is permitted for election purpose on the radio, while in France it is given, though the time allotted is extremely short, 5 minutes or less. It is clear from a study of foreign practices that each country has taken the conditions prevailing there and also the number of parties and other factors into consideration. The analogy of other countries, therefore, is of not much validity in coming to any conclusion as far as India is concerned. Taking into consideration the conditions prevailing in our country, the government feel that it would be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to make satisfactory arrangements for giving such facilities to all political parties. Besides the points mentioned above, another important factor has to be considered. In other countries, for national broadcasting, only one language is used, and that too only in national elections. The exception in Switzerland, where there are three languages, that it is one of the important reasons that Switzerland does not permit the use of the national radio for election purposes and even for the commercial purposes. In India, we are confronted with the task of providing facilities in 12 languages besides English, and they would be asked to give equal facilities from stations of All India Radio, which are 26 in number. Moreover, in working out any practical formula, it has to be remembered that the number of parties formula, it has to be remembered number of parties which will have to be provided with these facilities comes to nearly 26. The apportionment of time between the various political parties and at different stations of the AIR would be a task of extreme difficulty and is bound to lead to criticism and partiality. The determination of the principle for purposes of allocation of time will also lead to much controversy. Language stations of regional centers of AIR might have to cater to a large number of parties and provide them with time for broadcast in at least two to three languages and sometimes more. Apportionment of time is made in different countries in different manners, some doing it on the number of votes polled, others on the number of candidates put up by parties. We feel that any such apportionment would result in recriminations and criticism of government. On the other hand, if all parties have to be provided with equal time, the normal activities of the AIR stations will have to be drastically curtailed during the election time. The proposal to provide broadcasting time in a fair and reasonable manner therefore seems almost insoluble in practice. In view of these practical considerations, government have come to the conclusion that it would not be possible to allow political parties generally to utilize the facilities of the radio for election purposes. However, government feel that an experiment permitting such utilization on a restricted scale might be tried in order to see whether such facilities can be used for specific election purposes without taking a major part of the time of the radio and also without leading to a charge of discrimination or partiality. It has been decided that the four India parties recognized by the Election Commission might be allowed the facility of supplying a summary of their election manifestos prepared by themselves, which will be broadcast by AIR subject to usual rules. Such summaries might not exceed 10 minutes and will be broadcast in English and in all the regional languages of the country if this opportunity is allowed at least to the leading political parties of the country. It will surely further strengthen the system of democratic government in the country and will provide healthy and fair conditions for fighting the general elections. Stop.